Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is our second installment of Green Table Talk, a show about normalizing diversity and inclusion. My name is Ibrahim Mudassar, and with me I have a panel of passionate speakers. Today's show is about implicit bias, a pre-imposed preference or aversion to a group of people. We all took the Harvard Race Implicit Association test, and we're going to talk about our results. So does anyone want to go first? I had a strong association towards white people. Does anyone want to talk about what they got?
See, I got no preference.
I also got no preference.
I got moderate preference towards black over white.
So do we want to talk about why we think we got that, or?
I think I got no preference because, like, as I was growing up, I was just told to, like, treat everyone equal because when my parents were growing up, they were never treated equal. So they were just, like, treat everyone the way you want to be treated. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah. My mom, I think she did a really good job in teaching me not to, I guess, choose who is the inferior or superior race. And in doing that, she also showed me many ways that people do it, certainly, and how it could be subtly done as well. So, yeah.
Anyone else?
I mean, the way I grew up in a family like with different cultures. I have a whole bunch of backgrounds, so it's like I have like different like worlds. So it's like when I'm looking at it, it doesn't really have a preference on it.
Yeah, so I guess the common theme here is how we've grown up, where we've grown up, right? So how do we think, are there any other variables that you think affect that, or?
I do feel like, me personally, I got moderate preference towards black. And I do feel like that a reason for that could be because I do think that black people are obviously underrepresented, misrepresented, and constantly seen as inferior. So I do feel like my internal support for black people is just always there. So I think that's a reason for that. And I do think that there can be other causes of that. Like if you are a certain race and you grow up in your household, like if you grow up black around black people, you'll have that preference for black people. But it could also change, like when you go to school, when you're around people who don't see, for example, if you're black, your race as, they see your race as inferior rather than equal to, then you can be affected by that, and you could definitely start to see white people as being superior.
Right.
So what do you think are some ways that we can reduce bias?
I think I think in our generation, it's becoming more of a thing now to be educated on what race is.
Exactly, I think education is the
what race
biggest one.
is and what it actually means, because there's so much black and white towards it when it doesn't have to be black and white. Literally, like, choosing whether it's black or white. But I think in general, we're doing a pretty good job in learning and teaching others as well. Like, I know I'm not perfect, and I also can say things or have an opinion on something that I'm not educated about. So when that does happen, I try to limit myself, knowing that there's someone out there it could offend, or someone out there that might see it differently, and I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for who I'm around in my environment, we do have a really good group of kids who are able to teach each other. So I think that's one way we can.
Yeah, I think that's why the show is so important, because we're willing to be vulnerable, and so we're effectively normalizing the education around something that may be a little bit taboo, right? No one wants to talk about their own implicit biases. So going off of that, like, do you think that having an implicit bias makes you a bad person inherently?
Absolutely not.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it could necessarily mean you're a bad person, because it's human nature to automatically, like, you see someone, you automatically judge like 10 things about them.
Mm-hmm.
And like you have like your set view on like that person is before even talking to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of human nature, but since there are so many factors that go into it and variables when you grow up, who you're exposed to, what you're exposed to, like media, social media, like music, etc., I don't think it really makes you a bad person, but what makes you a bad person is how you act on it, what you do with it, how you interact with other people, especially like if you're taking in somebody's hate and you're spewing it back onto somebody else, that could definitely make you a better person.
I also wanted to add how ethical values in our environment growing up really has an effect on us as well, because like the first thing we had mentioned is we grew up being surrounded by multiple cultures and that just being able to have that from our parents that would tell us and have that communication. But I also think the wrong communication and the wrong information being passed down can affect you, which could seem like it could make you come off as a bad person, but to other people, like for me, when I see somebody who is a certain way and then I go over to the house and I'm like, oh, because then, I'm like, okay, I understand why now. But so a lot of it does come from older generations, that being passed down. So I think that's also very important in the education of like learning race and what it really means to be a racist or so
because no one's born racist.
Yeah.
You're
It's
taught
taught.
that.
Exactly. Ingrained.
I mean, it could also be by experience. Like, if
Yeah.
somebody went through, like, they went through a certain
Right.
experience, they're gonna have that way of looking at somebody. So that could be one thing about it.
Yeah, so I think if someone has a privileged or rather like a disadvantaged experience, then they're going to think differently. So how do we think that that's affected us personally? Have we had like a disadvantaged experience that's made us implicitly like neutral, where we think we have to be completely neutral because we don't want what has happened to us?
So growing up in a Muslim environment, going to Muslim schools, I was around a lot of Middle Eastern, not sure what else to say, but Middle Eastern kids. And being black, there's a small minority of it's a small group of us in the school. So you could probably say every school I've been to, there's been about like a group of like 10 black kids, and that was it. So that I had to go through a lot of racistness, people being racist, people being stereotypical about like if I didn't play a certain sport or if I didn't do certain things or if I acted a certain way I wasn't black enough or something like that. So growing up, like I had to like try to not be like, I don't know how to explain it 100%, but I couldn't be. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, it's like I had to like change the way I acted around certain people.
because of the stereotype.
Yeah.
So, do you think your interaction with people changed? Like, because you were part of a small minority, you thought it was more familial with like the black people that you went with, and then it kind of alienated you from the other Middle Eastern people?
Yeah, most definitely. So, most of my life, as I said, most of my life I was in schools, Muslim schools with Middle Eastern kids. But there was a point around like from like fourth to eighth grade, I went to a majority black Muslim school, and it was like probably the greatest thing of my life. I was around people who understood me, who were just like me, so it was easier to like approach and talk to people and make new friends, rather than the Middle Eastern schools I was at.
See, my experience was totally different. I'm actually thankful for my experience, because my last school, my last environment, it was more of a, see, I'm made up of like 3 different races myself. It was more of one race, but when I come here, our school now, JFK, is made of a bunch of races. And I think everybody, like, they gel well together, and I think, I don't see a lot of negativity, so I'm grateful that I've been able to be a part of a school like that.
And do you think it's because JFK itself is so diverse that we understand what it's like, right?
One situation that happened to me was my appearance. Like, I have really curly hair, and I guess I have hoops in, and I have really curly hair, and I'm not black, but as I appeared and I was saying something and it was educational, I had somebody come up to me and they're like, "Wow, I didn't think you were made of that." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Yeah, and they're like, "You just don't look like you would know." And I'm like, and then they're like, "Wait, I didn't mean it in a bad way." And that's like a perfect example. You never know how you can offend somebody. And they're like, "I didn't mean it in that way. I'm sorry if you took offense." And I was like, "Okay, like,
would you take that?"
Yeah, like, well, how wouldn't you take that just because of my appearance? And I don't know. It was very weird. But I've never been put in a position like you have. And every time a black voice is heard, a black voice is speaking, I want to listen. And I was surprised I didn't have a preference towards black people. I can say that because I do see how they're opposed. I do see how they struggle till this day. And even though it's not as much as it was before, it's still very prevalent. There's still always going to be those group of people that have that continuous mindset that that's passed down. So yeah, I think.
How does your implicit bias affect the people you choose to interact with?
Honestly, so I got moderately preference to black people over white people, but I don't know, it kind of confused me a little bit because I was born that like everyone's equal. It doesn't matter your skin tone, it doesn't matter where you came from, who you grew up with, it's how you are as a person, how you interact with everybody. So to me, if you're a good person and you're honest and you're loyal to me, I will give you the same respect. And that's how I was raised personally.
I feel like I am more drawn towards people of Hispanic origin and stuff like that, or people who I can see like automatically relate to, like off of appearance. But at the same time, that never stops me from doing the same with anybody else who's around there. Like I won't be like if we're talking to each other and then she comes in, I'm not gonna be like, okay, so anyways, no, I'm gonna make sure we're all present, we're all being listened to. But I do feel like I am a little bit more drawn towards like my Hispanic.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, if I walk into a room with nobody, I don't know anybody, I'm going to go to the person who's black. I'm going to go to the person of color because I feel more comfortable around people who are black, people who are people of color. Because, I don't know, it's just like ingrained in my brain, I guess. Like, also from experiences as well, like in my past, but like, you're more likely to be more comfortable around somebody who looks like you, who you've grown up with, and also you're more likely to be around someone who you don't think is going to or like
Have like a bias.
have a bias or perform any type of like microaggression against you. You're just more likely to be comfortable around someone who looks like you, who they have probably gone through the same thing as you.
Yeah. I agree with you're usually like more drawn to somebody that looks like you because you're gonna connect with them more. But I feel like for me, like as I got no preference, some of you guys did too. I feel like everybody they have a clean slate. If you haven't spoke to them, they have a clean slate. So you don't know how they talk, you don't know how they act. So it really doesn't matter how somebody looks to me. Like I'm gonna go off about what you show me. So I think I'm not really drawn to like just automatically choose to be close to one and interact with one person. I think everybody just has the same amount of equality, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like if I just go if I go in a crowd of people and I see the first person I see and they seem cool, I'm out interacting with them. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, if they're like it doesn't matter what they are. So if I'm cool with them, like if there's like a vibe going on, I'll start talking to them. I don't have like no like preference into that of who like I'm comfortable with or not.
I feel that, but I also feel like
it's natural.
I feel like it's not only natural, but also a lot of people will go through certain things in their past. Like me personally, I have like 9 times out of 10, not 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the times when I'm around a new person who is most likely white or not black, they'll be like, oh wow, nice hair, or they'll reach for my hair and try to touch my hair, or say something just really rude or offensive or ignorant, something like that. And I feel like a lot of people who have gone through those type of things use this implicit bias, their bias towards, for example, people of color or black people as a safety precaution to avoid running into those situations where they're uncomfortable, where they feel like attacked, where they feel like aggravated, because it's like mentally and physically exhausting to go through those type of things. So I feel like a lot of people of color and a lot of black people especially avoid interacting with white people for those reasons, or avoid or try to stick to people who look like them for those reasons.
Honestly, I feel like that's hard to hear because like coming from a place where like I grew up as like someone who's equal and like everybody has like the same opportunities, like Josiah said, everyone has a place, like it's hard to hear that like someone treated you like that and was white, because that like implicit bias, that puts like a bad reputation on then me if you just saw me, and that's what hurts because like I'm someone who would never do that. Like I completely understand. Like I can't say I completely understand because I don't. I'm not in your shoes, but I know when there's a line that shouldn't be crossed.
Yeah, which is why I think like our generation is creating this foundation of, and I don't want to say creating because there were people before us, but at the same time, I feel like we are speaking out more. We have more that boldness to stand up for what we believe in, to be able to stand with each other. And like you said, like just you being able to say that, not many people who do feel that way can say it because they're scared of being put in that spot. Like you're an outsider then, or same way for you. Like there's a lot of people who are black people that feel the way you do, but wouldn't be able to say that. So I think it's important that we all understand and see each other's voices, and whether or not we agree with each other, respect that. So I think that's good.
Oh, so yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit more to what she was saying. So, when I came here last year, so last year was my first year here, and I was planning on playing football. When I showed up, it was a Saturday. When I showed up, the team was out there practicing, and as I'm out there, I see like there's a whole different type of different ethnicities out there, and I walked up to I think the first I can remember the first 3 people I walked up to, they were all black because I wasn't sure exactly how to talk to anybody else. I felt more comfortable to walk up and introduce myself to them because I felt like I wouldn't have to be like act different, act weird, or lower my not exactly sure how to say it, but act like lower myself to make it seem like I'm not. I don't know exactly how to word it, but it just felt.
It's like watered down your personality.
Yeah, watered down my personality. So like I have different personalities, and I like one being myself is where I like talking to people. I like to be happy. I like to be making jokes, and I like that. So when I walked up to the kids on the team, it felt good. But then I started to get to know the whole team, and I like this school. I really do love this school because the people in this school, there's so many different ethnicities, but we're all. It's like. We all connected. There's no bias. I don't really feel that bias all the time. There may be sometimes, but I don't feel it like most of the time.
Right.
And I'm happy that I've met new friends.
We're all accepting.
Yeah, I agree. Every person I've met can feel
Yeah,
comfortable.
I agree with you because I play baseball and there's not one dominant like culture on my team. But like if we go to like another school, we're gonna
You
see
can
one
see it,
dominant.
yeah,
Yeah, you
you
can
can
see it, and
see
it's
it.
like wow, like I didn't like when I first started playing baseball. When I go to other schools, I didn't realize every school was like.
Not to toot our own horn.
No, yeah, I don't want to say that, but like,
JFK.
I would always see like one dominant race
Yeah.
on each of the schools,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it doesn't even matter. But it's like when I look at our team, like I'm happy to be a part of the team because I got a whole different culture, and I feel like I could like I don't want to say brag, but like
Learn from it.
yeah,
Yes, brag. Yes, brag.
I could brag about it.
Yeah, you could just learn from that.
Yeah.
So talking about teams and everything, I played basketball and I went to a basketball game this year, and they had a more dominant race. So I went into it like maybe they're not, maybe some of them are biased because of who they're around and everything. And no, it wasn't like that at all. They were all nice, good people. They gave us cookies, free cups. You know, the dominant race, like every person I ran into that night, they were all nice. They were all friendly.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, like sometimes you don't notice we'll go in with that expectation, and then it'll actually affect how we perform and what we do, and sometimes opportunities that we'll get. Like we'll go in thinking, you know what, I'm not gonna go there just because I think this will happen, instead of going there with more of an expectation of, you know, everybody is gonna be the same way.
I feel like you should go into like a group like with an open mind of
Right.
like you never know what they'll say. You might be surprised.
But even so, with that open-minded mindset, it's from experience too.
Yeah.
Because like Ababa said, and you said, when you were younger, like when I was younger, it's a camp, I was like a little kid, I know no better, and I wanted to hang out with my friends, but they're like, well, I can't hang out with you because my parents said you're black, and I was like, wow, like, okay. So I feel like from that experience, it's still gonna like judge how you think now, even so. Like even still now, like I'm surprised I got that flat line over Brearley. I was gonna lean more towards blacks, but even now, it's going in with a clean slate. Like it's important, but it's just from experience of growing up and being younger and everything, from like what just hit me when I was like 5-7 years old. It's just gonna carry on with me.
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's obviously important to have an open mind with whatever you do, and we should all have an open mind, but in reality, it's not really possible at this time, especially because, like, past experiences, terrible experiences with people of like who don't look like you, and that really affects you. And I feel like obviously like we all look at implicit bias as a negative thing, and most of the time it really is, but I do feel like for a lot of people of color and Black people it's necessary. And I think it is necessary to have certain safety precautions like in your mind. Like when you do see somebody who is white, many times like it might be a negative thought immediately, and it's not good. It says a lot about society that we think that way, but I do think it's necessary because many times it can end up being like right. You know what I mean? You could like not going to talk to that white person over there could end up being a positive thing, because what if they say something like what if they're racist towards you? You know what I mean? What if they're like want to physically harm you? And I think it's necessary in that case.
Yeah, I think we have to strike that balance in between protecting ourselves, protecting our own feelings, and being able to learn about other cultures and everyone else. So we all think that discrimination is wrong, that racism is wrong, but we all still may hold stereotypes based on our implicit biases and past experiences. So how can we work to have a more equal society, for example, even while all of us do have implicit biases?
Just educate. Honestly,
Yeah.
you just have to educate yourself. You have to try to have a more diverse group. Like, we're all very diverse right now.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I was saying, JFK is very diverse. So I feel like we take a new step every day. The sun will rise again tomorrow. Like, we just,
I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think it's also very important that we're not the only ones doing it. I see a lot of teachers actually stepping out of their way to educate themselves. And I think that is one of the best things to be done, because these are our leaders. These are who we look up to. We sit most of the time, spend more time with them than with our own parents at home. These are our educators. We need them to be that stepping stone as well. So I think that's also very important.
I mean, yeah, it definitely starts with education. It starts from very, very young. Like Jackie said, you can have these experiences when you're 5, like literally some of your first memories. So it's really important that once we are getting older and then once we have children or whatever, that you instill that being kind, open-mindedness towards your children so that they can interact with one another better than we will and better than our parents did, you know?
Yeah, like definitely going off that, we're the new generation.
exactly.
Like what we learn now is what we're gonna teach our kids in the future, and that's gonna be the new generation.
Yeah.
So if we're all getting educated now and realizing right from wrong, then that's gonna benefit us in the future.
Yeah, I think of what Ensu said, like having an open mind and everything. There's a lot of people out there, like even somebody related to me, like they move around being biased that certain people are biased toward them.
Right.
So they're more guarded. They have their guard up and stuff.
Yep.
But if they just take the time to just give people chances, they'll move through life like more safe,
Comfortably.
more calm, comfortably.
Yeah, that's why I think what Jess said was so important. In like our formative years in elementary school, middle, high school, that's when we get a lot of these stereotypes. That's when we're learning a lot about our own biases. And so having teachers, having kids around us be diverse, be open to talking about it is so important. And it leads to a more equal society, because we are going to grow up and be the next generation, right?
Okay, with that being said, is education enough?
Because I think it's enough in certain areas. Like for our school, we definitely we give the opportunity for you to learn about certain cultures. We have extra classes like Black African history and all of that. So if you really want to get educated on it, you can. Like in a school like this, they offer those opportunities to get more educated on certain things.
So I think education will always be enough, but there's obviously so much more we can do about it. Like, there are people who have groups and have just teams of people who are providing for certain races and for kids and minorities in general. But I think if that question can be answered a certain way, depending on who it's said to. Like, a lot of people don't have a positive view on implicit bias, and they can say education is not enough. There has to be a certain aggressiveness towards wanting to show other people that Black lives do matter, or that there should be an equality towards every race. I feel like that the question is very important, and that's a really good question, because sometimes we can view things in a negative way. Like if somebody was in a bad mood, like, you know what, maybe I don't want to educate, or I don't want to be educated. I want to make action, which is a lot of what has happened recently. And even though it's not as recent, there's still movement happening where sometimes it turns violent.
Right.
And although that may not be the answer, a lot of people still see that as an answer because they are tired. You know, so I feel like that is also just throwing that out there, like education will always be enough, but some people think it's not.
Yeah, I completely agree. I definitely feel like education is enough. It's the people who don't want to get educated that is the problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's not enough to be educated, but to actively have this mindset of open-mindedness and actively want to like change other people's perception on like race, for example, like their implicit bias. You don't want a white person, for example, to look at a black person and think lowly of them. You
And
want
the other way around, too.
you want everybody in the room to see each other as equal. So I think it's really important, like what you said, that education is enough, but in a lot of cases, there's a lot of things that need to happen simultaneously,
Right.
like education, like political action, so many things, like open communication. For
Because
sure.
when I think of education, I don't think just straight of like school classes and everything, because not every school is gonna have like African American classes. Like when I think of education, I think of like taking your own time to like go to work and look at this person and be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't have a bias on this person. Or like going out of your way to go online and like do your own research. Like you don't have to be in school, like go to college to educate yourself. You should just like take your own time to like learn and like think about things before you say them.
Yeah. So, what happens when society is reinforcing things that are against what you are learning?
I feel like as students, we feel limited because when it becomes of higher authority, a lot of the time we are looked at as just kids, which actually very much infuriates me because I hate that, because I've met a lot of adults where I look at them and I'm like, wow. It's just very, like, that actually is very infuriating when we're talked down upon just because we don't have as much experience or as much years of life as other people do. I think we all have a voice, but I don't think if the person who is implying something that is against us doesn't listen, because that's very, very common. We don't really have much to do. We can do as much as go against the learning and speak to authority, and we do have that benefit, but at the same time, it's up to the person in general if they want to listen or not.
It only does so much.
Exactly.
It might go both ways too, because I've seen it where students like our age, they really don't care what the teacher has to say because of their race. So they're like, oh, you don't understand, like, how you trying to teach me about this, and you're not the same race as me. So I see that happen too.
Yeah, I think many of us grow up and we're taught to think that we're one small fish in a humongous sea, and so we can't do much about it. But like my answer to that question is change the society, right? One voice doesn't mean much, but millions of voices across the nation will. And I guess we have a platform now using technology that no one else has ever had before. And so using that is what we can do first and foremost to change whether it be a discrimination society or anything else.
I absolutely agree. I feel like although we can only do so much, if we do have that platform, we do have enough people who will support us, not just students, but adults as well, because there are adults out there who are like, yes, you guys, new generation, speak up, like, appreciate those adults. And, just being able to, back on what you're saying, I definitely agree with that, but at the same time, it is very difficult.
I feel like also, like with this question, I feel like it's necessary that in order for you to actually, like you as in young people, to make real change that you want to see, like your thoughts being heard, it's really important that you make sure you keep reminding yourself of your values, what you really think is what you think is true, what you think should be changed in the world, and apply that to when you do go to college, when you do have those opportunities to change little things about your world, around your world, and people who it'll affect. Like, if you're going into the film industry and you want to see more diversity, then when you're in that place of power, you know, like, hire more diverse people, more diverse casts instead of just one race, you know? If you're going into a STEM, like, type of job, and you get into that place of power where, like, somebody, let's say you have a job, and somebody's applying to get hired, and let's say you're also a minority, you're both minorities, and your boss is like white or whatever, then it's important to put that good word in for that person, you know? It's important to support them, it's important to support people who you can see, like, oh, I've been there. And, like, as we grow up, it's really important to, like, keep in mind, like, what you want to see change in the world.
I think that also, like, I heard one thing you said about, like, just being able to hire, like, that diverse culture and stuff like that, instead of just hiring one culture. I think there's also a very big, like, attention on, have you heard the black on black, what's it called, black on black?
Violence?
Yeah, black on black crime or white on white crime. Like, being able to go against your own race because you feel uncomfortable, or because there's a disconnect, or because you're taught to. I feel like that's also a very big problem in today's generation. There's a couple, like, people who have big platforms who do that as well, and that's also very important because it can misguide others.
Yeah, there was a situation that's similar to that, where this guy, he felt like they were being biased towards him, so he sued certain people, and one of those people that were getting sued, they didn't care because they knew they weren't being biased, so they still hired him, and they were being sued by him, but they didn't, like, you know, they weren't trying to be biased, they were showing that they weren't biased towards him, so they still hired him.
That's it from us, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. This conversation doesn't end here between us panelists. You can do this with your friends as well. We're so proud of what this show has accomplished. Please like and subscribe so you can have more Green Table Talk videos, so we can have Excuse the Interruption as well. I guess that's it. Have a good day.
Bye!
While youth is wise with goals and dreams and knowledge deep and strong.